Hello again, and welcome to a new edition of Media Watch. I'm your host, Bob Anthony.
I'm Alan Singer.
I'm Eric Tait, and thanks again for being with us, Dr. Alan Singer, a resident educator historian. Bob,
And as
no, yeah,
no, I was just going to say, as usual, the show is brought to you courtesy of EVT Educational Productions, Zoom, of course, and Manhattan Neighborhood Network. And you'll normally see us every other Monday at 5:30 on MNN. We're taping on February 25th. Uh, so you'll see us the following Monday, hopefully, if they do it right.
this is the Wednesday after the supposed State of the Union address. Go ahead, Bob. Talk to us about the supposed.
Yeah, I mean, we're all old enough to have sat through numerous State of the Union addresses, and uh, they're usually soaring and informative, and boast a lot of boasting, of course, in State of the Union address. But what I saw last night, as soon as it was over, the first word out of my mouth was "windbag," because it was just show and very little substance. He consistently insulted the Democrats on one side of the room, many of which didn't show up. They attended an alternate rally, but it was long on moments like introducing the gold medal winning USA hockey team. They spent a lot of minutes on that. Uh, 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 Much longer than they needed to. And there was the usual introduction of military heroes who received medals, and he also introduced a number of victims of violence caused by what he said were illegal aliens. So there were a lot of moments like that
Alan, you have
mixed
an
in.
update on who he introduced murdered by illegal aliens?
Well, again, Trump is not good on facts. So, in the State of the Union address, he described the killing of a woman named Irina in North Carolina. And he said, this is a quote, slain by a hardened criminal set free to kill in America, came in through the open border, end quote. The thing is, the person accused of the crime was actually born in Charlotte, North Carolina, and so is an American citizen. So the speech was just filled with that. I, it was a clown show. I mean, one of the things that, again, was really weird is he gave the American Medal of Freedom to the goalie of the Olympic hockey team because
Uh,
I guess he saved the country.
that was one of those moments when I just shook my head. I'm like, yeah, that guy had a good game, but a medal? When you look at the names of the other people, and I looked up a few of the people who had received that medal over the years. I'm sorry, an hour on the ice isn't the equivalent of a lifetime of achievement.
Well,
Yes, it was a great moment.
he deserved it more than Charlie Kirk deserved whatever medal they gave Charlie Kirk.
It,
If you put
again,
it in perspective.
it, it, I mean, it's when you give away a medal for political purposes to make again a showtime moment.
Yeah.
And you could see that the goaltender Hellebuck was a little bit stunned. I mean, he didn't want to say, he didn't. He really didn't react. He was like,
Mhm.
"Really, medal, me?" So the speech was full of those moments. Like I said, very little substance. It's supposed to be the state of the nation, not what Donald Trump has done for you. But that's what the speech was. This is what, and he said that he talked about himself in the third person multiple times. Who did this or who did that? Donald J. Trump. Uh,
So
Again,
he
uh,
brought up the victims of crimes by alleged illegal aliens, even though half of that wasn't correct, or at least a third of it wasn't.
but
But
go
he
ahead, Eric.
failed to. What about the other victims that were in the audience that he didn't mention?
Yes, yeah, he didn't mention those victims, the victims of Stephen Epstein. who were actually invited by
Jeffrey Epstein.
I'm sorry, Jeffrey Epstein. I have a friend by that name.
I don't know more.
Yes, exactly. He's I'm off his list. But yeah, they were upstairs. The some of the victims were actually upstairs, and invited by Democrats, many of which actually boycotted the State of the Union. That never got mentioned. A lot of things were not mentioned in that speech, which were basically elephants in the room.
What was the assessment? What was the assessment media-wise? Not that we're enamored of media, but what was most of the media assessment of the speech?
It mirrored what I said, long on Showtime, short on substance. If you went in there looking for, huh?
And they're fact checking.
The New York Times fact checking, and I'm surprised they stayed up. There was a lot to fact check. Let's put it that way. And I would take too much time going point to point. But just about every point that they fact checked was either false, exaggerated, or needed context. They couldn't stamp a true label on
anything he said.
Almost, there might have been one in there, but yeah, it was. And that's the terrible thing, because the three of us know that a big part of this country that supports him will just believe whatever he said during that speech. They'll just take it for the truth, and so much of it was exaggerated or false.
Well, the best comment I heard was one of the reporters, and I guess it was the Times, that's what I read, said Ronald Reagan gave his speech in 31 minutes, and it took Donald Trump 2 hours to say nothing.
Yes, there you go.
Okay, we spent enough time on his craziness. The Democratic rebuttal?
Basically talked about the things that he missed and he didn't talk about, which are essential to this country: the healthcare, the prices, the war-mongering. Well, actually, I'm not sure if she spoke about that, but yeah, a lot of what the media had hit upon, she brought up, and she was mercifully brief but informative. So I'm not.
That was Ann Spanberger.
Spanberger from the new governor in Virginia. Yes, the newly elected governor.
This is what worries me. Trump, without congressional authorization, has already overthrown a government in Venezuela, is strangling Cuba to overthrow its government, and is threatening to overthrow the government of Iran. Now, none of these places are threatening the United States. There was no justification for taking any of these actions without congressional approval, which is what the Constitution and the War Powers Act say. Trump is ignoring American law in his foreign policy. But at the same time, we need to depend on the media to hammer away at this. And the media treats it like he's making reasonable choices. I don't see enough media criticism of threats of a broader war because of his irresponsible and illegal behavior.
So let's talk about media coverage, Bob, as part of our through line on this. What did Trump have to say when Jesse Jackson died? Some weird, odd thing. He actually didn't really talk about Jesse Jackson. He talked about Herschel Walker or somebody when Jesse Jackson died. But the Trump's weirdness and how the media covers Trump's weirdness has always been a big pet peeve of mine. And so this whole bit that Alan just raised, media coverage. First of all, what did Jesse Jackson's son have to say about the media coverage of his father's passing?
Well, the family wasn't exactly enamored at how the media covered it in some of their obituaries. The New York Times obit talks a bit about, of course, his personality, his ego, but it also goes into, it spent a lot of time actually talking about, they call him an imperfect person whose ego got ahead of him, and much to the chagrin of some of his friends and admirers. And there was one commentator in there that said that Jackson tried to mythologize himself. So Jesse Jackson Jr., who's a congressperson, I forget, in Illinois,
Yeah.
and he said the family wasn't happy with that coverage because he said what they say is not the person that we know. So yeah, that was in give credit to Richard Prince and his journalisms for connecting us to that story.
Indeed, and I used Richard Prince's photo in my Jesse Jackson comment when I posted on Facebook. But a couple of the lines I used was the fact that yes, we knew Jesse Jackson loved the camera. There was no doubt about it. But I also stated he spent his entire adult life not just in the service of Black people, but in the service of all those unvoiced, underrepresented, and uncovered people. His entire adult life, he did that seamlessly and selflessly. And so, whatever failings he may have had, he more than made up for it in his service to mankind, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, he may have had some, yeah, he did love a camera. Yeah, but he also had the knack for coining pithy, memorable, and accurate one-liners that spoke to what the conditions were for people. I am somebody, yes, definitely. Rest of America didn't think Black people were somebody. Jesse said, stand up and say it. I am somebody. Yes. Keep hope alive? Yes. We can't despair in this country where they try to keep us down forever, economically, socially, judicially. Keep hope alive. All those phrases, all those one-liners, Jesse Jackson could get to the root of the problem, bar none. Go.
I had very mixed feelings when Jackson ran for president in 84 and 88, though I did vote for him in the New York primaries. And my concern was he wasn't going to win, and the Democrats needed a candidate who could possibly win. But on the other hand, Jackson raised issues that had to be raised. He basically used the campaign as an opportunity to raise issues. He enlisted people to vote who had not been voting. And in some ways, you could credit the election of David Dinkins as mayor in 1989 to the fact that Jesse Jackson got all these people registered to vote before the New York City Democratic primary. So, yeah.
No, you're right, Alan. Because of Jackson, it was basically Black people talking for ourselves, as opposed to the Democrats saying, "Oh, we'll take care of you." But Jackson showing up at the Democratic national conventions, I mean, that put a lot of pressure on the Democrats to add what he was supporting to their planks. It couldn't be ignored, and I think that's the effect he had. He brought issues. The leaders, other leaders of the movement, like Ralph Abernathy, who I have a lot of respect for, were aging at the time, and they needed a new, younger, energetic, face to the movement, and he provided that, and plus some because of his ego. But like Eric said, no, the ego wasn't in his way. He had the passion, and he had the commitment, and he had the ability, and that's why he succeeded.
One of the reasons why Jesse Jackson's 2 runs for the presidency was seminal and significant is because the Democratic Party, I mean, they got him to speak at one of the conventions, I forget which one, but that was their way of thanking him for exactly what he did for them. Jackson put more Black people on the registration voter rolls than any person in this country. And because of both those presidential runs, he basically, I remember in the pre-run up to his official announcement, covering him on rallies across the country. I watched Iowa farmers actually listen to this man and believe what he was saying. I watched folks in the ghetto listen to this man and know he was the guy who cared about them. That's where the cry, "Run, Jesse, run," emanated from that 83 exploratory campaign, not
And
from the actual campaign.
and remind folks, Eric, you're not just talking about that campaign, that exploratory campaign. You were basically embedded with him, one of the early reporters who were embedded and got to travel with him. So go ahead, take just a brief moment and explain that.
From Las Vegas over to Europe, we traveled with him while he explored what the reaction would be people-wise, showed himself to heads of state and governments. I watched him in front of what the parliament is called in the Netherlands, watch him go toe-to-toe, field all kinds of questions. One of the most brilliant minds I've come across in all my coverage in the news business, in all my life, period. Brilliant mind. Folks don't understand how brilliant this man was. But this guy could focus laser sharp. He could intake material quickly, digest it, and regurgitate it as if it was his own. Watched him do that all across the country. Watch him connect with the lowest to the highest. And when he saw the reaction he got, there was no doubt he was going to run in 84. And the Democratic Party never acknowledged how many registered voters he brought onto their rolls. But he's the guy who single-handedly made black voters the major voting bloc for the Democratic Party because of how many unregistered voters he put on the rolls. So that's his main legacy as far as I'm concerned. But we know he's got a lot more.
And as a reporter in the 1980s, I had the same reaction as you, Eric. He could think on his feet. He could absorb and react and do right on the spot. But I only met him a couple times in my life, and but both times you could tell, even late when he was suffering from the Parkinson disease type ailment that he had, he was like Muhammad Ali in his late life. He was there, but he couldn't always express what he wanted to get out there.
As articulate as we knew he was.
He did speak at both the 84 and the 88 Democratic Party conventions. In the 88 convention is where he did keep hope alive.
Okay.
Oh, but but I'm sure he coined that phrase long before that.
That was a feature. That's where it became a big national
yes.
Mm-hmm.
That nailed it. Yeah, that definitely put it into concrete.
But we didn't plan to spend this much time on Jesse, but guess what? Jesse is Jesse. He deserves everything he got.
Agreed.
But media coverage of him may have left something to be desired, at least in the mainstream media. All the posts that I saw on Facebook when Jesse passed from reporters who covered him, they understood who he was. They understood his significance, and there was nothing negative about any of those things. I mean, they didn't whitewash his flaws, but they let people know exactly how important he was and is. And I
think media has been letting us down. And I think one of the reasons is the concern about Trump lawsuits. You know, currently he's got suits against the BBC, the Washington, what they call Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. And I think media is gun shy of getting hit. One of the big ones we were noticing is the Committee to Protect Journalists has been monitoring what's going on in the Israeli war on Gaza. Over 250 Palestinian journalists have been killed in Israeli action since the start of the Gaza war. 94 of the deaths occurred in Israeli custody. And the mainstream media has not picked up on this. We know about it because of Democracy Now!, and we know about it because of The Guardian, which is a British publication with an American adjunct. But what the Committee to Protect Journalists did is they contacted 65 journalists who had been held and then released by Israel. 59 of them agreed to be interviewed. One had already been murdered by the Israelis, and the others were basically frightened. And these people reported being abused. They were tortured. They were starved. And meanwhile, Israel refuses to allow journalists from outside Gaza, from out to enter to report on what's going on,
Even with the ceasefire. Go ahead, Alan.
even with the ceasefire. And so what happens is the Palestinian journalists in Gaza and in the West Bank are subject to this mistreatment. Well, the other journalists can't get in, and the media is not hammering away at this.
So
I
the
have
Israelis are denying this report that CPJ came out with. Is that correct, Alan?
Israel denied, yes, Israel said it's not true. It's not true. And again, that's just a tag. It's on the articles. At
it, it
what point does the New York Times say it is true? Now, Tom Friedman, the columnist, says this stuff is true, but the
yes.
Times is being very cautious.
Yeah, I agree with you, Alan, that the major media is being gun shy because they're afraid of Trump, and the electronic media is especially gun shy with this guy Brendan Carr in charge. But just today, on the 25th, CPJ, the Committee to Protect Journalists, reports that 159 journalists, they did a final count, were
Mm.
killed in 2025, and two-thirds of them were killed by Israel. And the number of drone uh, uh, killings has vastly increased. Now, a drone is not a mortar. It's not a scatter shot that accidentally hits the wrong target. You target a drone. You send a drone to where you want it to be. So these are targeted attacks on journalists. In many cases, the most high, the one I guess that we all remember is the female journalist, right, Eric? Shireen.
Shireen Abu Akleh. Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead, Bob. Talk
No.
about her.
Yeah. She was covering. She was in the West Bank, correct, Alan? And
Yes,
doing coverage with a press. The press lettuce press right across her, probably a flak jacket.
That's
And
flak jacket.
yeah,
Yes.
and she was standing in a position where she would have considered herself safe. The New York Times and other folks have done analyses of her killing, and there is no other conclusion other than she was targeted. The IDF knew where she was, they knew where she was standing, they knew who she was, and somebody wanted to take her out and did. So we have a number of these targeted attacks against journalists, uh, counted by CPJ and other organizations. Uh, uh, you're right, Alan. The major media isn't talking about it because they're gun shy. Citizen journalists aren't out there, and no one else is out there, Alan, like you said, because journalists aren't in the region. And the Palestinians that do any kind of reporting and by whatever reason get caught are subject to torture. And I guess Israel has this, the IDF has this policy where they can hold people for a few months without a charge,
they can
uh,
hold
Not
people
for
indefinitely.
years. They can hold them
indefinitely
for years.
without a charge. Yeah.
Crazy.
And while they're in custody, they're some of them, as you just explained, Alan, are subject to Vietnam War type torture.
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like when I read it. It's really stomach turning.
Here's my, here's my question, guys. If they're scared of being sued by Trump, who they're afraid of being sued by reporting on torture by Israel of Palestinian journalists? Who's going to sue them? Why is this story being buried, not being covered? Democracy Now! Doesn't have the reach of ABC, NBC, CBS, or the New York Times, whether it's the New York Times video or the New York Times print. Democracy Now! Is a maybe like regional, if that much. Okay?
Hmm.
Maybe they got a good viewership on YouTube. I don't know.
It's out there, but you have to hunt it. It's
You
on
got
the
to
higher
look for it.
channels, and
You got to, yeah.
if you're a follower, you can find it.
So what is with our media that a story like this that deals with our profession, you would think we would want to shine a huge spotlight on this. The fact that journalists are being tortured and in some cases deliberately killed by IDF forces or Israeli forces, wherever they are, whether they're in the West Bank or in Gaza. Gaza is getting more attention because of all the starvation and all the decimation and what basically All the evidence seems to point to genocide that nobody wants to say. But the West Bank is getting worse.
Okay.
They just passed a law, Alan. We talked about it briefly on the last show about the fact they can now actually, quote, buy lands that were forbidden to be bought because they were owned by Palestinians, and that's the Palestinian land that would go towards making a Palestinian state, self-determined state. So now they've basically said, we're never going to let you have a state because we're going to take your land, whether we take it by force, which has been going on for years, or we let you, quote, buy it. So
Okay.
this is beyond my comprehension.
Well,
All
the
right.
Trump crime
Go ahead. Go ahead,
family.
Alan. Just want to
Oh,
give a 2 minute. Go
okay.
ahead. I just want to give a 2 minute warning. Go ahead.
Okay, the Trump crime family has extensive business interests in that region. So, and again, it's tied into very wealthy, very powerful supporters of the Netanyahu regime, are also very powerful, influential supporters of the Trump regime. And the Trump regime is a pay-to-play regime.
Or like Mike Huckabee, the quote ambassador to Israel, who claims that the Bible says Israel has every right to every piece of that
Oh,
territory. That crazy.
I
Look,
gotta tell you, I went back and read the Bible.
I don't want to go with Huckabee. I
Okay,
want to go off with the fact that the media is just crazy by not calling out Donald Trump for talking about a preemptive first strike against Iran. There is no
no,
sane playbook that says this country is supposed to publicly say we're going to attack you because we don't like your policies. They haven't done anything to provoke an act of war. And
no.
bombing Iran, invading Iran, doing whatever this crazy man in the White House says he wants to do should not be reported on as normal. We need to have the press call out this craziness.
Okay, one last comment.
Go ahead.
What Huckabee said was that God gave that region to the descendants of Abraham. Well, Isaac had an older brother, Ishmael, who is the ancestor of the Arab world. Well, if we're going to go by Genesis and we're going to go by firstborn, well, then the whole place belongs to the Arabs.
Uh,
By,
It's
by Huckabee's logic. But I don't trust Huckabee's logic, okay?
it's astounding, but yeah, it's very disappointing to see the media, which has been decimated by some of the media owners, and like Barry Weiss and Jeff Bezos, and well, Barry Weiss is a editor, but yeah, it's sad to see the state of journalism at this point. But with that, we're just about out of time as I see the clock run down. But this has been Media Watch. I'm your host, Bob Anthony.
I'm Alan Singer.
And I'm Eric Tait. Raymond Peterson's got some medical stuff he's taking care of, so he's not with us. Hopefully, he'll be back soon. And folks, we'll catch you the next time, right?
Yes, on and you can find us on YouTube at Media Watch EVT.